Here we are once again trying to figure out what version of winter January is going to bring us. We've been talking about this pretty much nonstop since even before Christmas time, and I continue to think that we're going to have a big time pattern flip around the mid-month time frame. We're here to discuss it, give you the latest information that we have from the overnight to the morning model guides. We'll discuss the upper pattern at first. That'll be, where we kind of geek out with you guys a little bit. And then we'll show you some individual model runs. We'll talk about temperatures. We'll show you some graphics from the Client Prediction Center. I'll discuss it, the MJO, and then we'll round off with today's forecast. Of course, I'm going to give you my take on everything as we move throughout this entire update. My name is Mitch. Good Friday morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So we're going to geek out with you guys for several minutes here. I'm going to discuss the overnight Euro ensemble, and then we'll discuss the Euro AI ensemble, and then we'll discuss the GFS ensemble. So each shows a sort of a different scenario here. The one we're going to show you first shows kind of a middle ground. Next is more of a favorable look for winter weather fans. And then the next after that, GFS Ensemble, is not a favorable look for winter weather fans for us in the central to eastern U.S. So let's go over. So the bluer colors you see on your screen, that's lower heights. It's a trough of low pressure. It normally brings colder air. And sometimes it brings a storm system, whether it's a weak or strong one. We always got to figure out the details behind that. And then the warmer colors you see on your screen, those are higher heights. Higher pressure normally indicates a ridge and normally brings above average temperature. So we're going to start off around Monday morning the 5th. So the end of this weekend, and we're going to move forward past that point. So as you can tell, let's make sure this is going to work for us, and I believe it is. We continue to have a trough over areas of Atlantic Canada and areas of the Northeast. This will continue to kind of funnel down cold air and keep the Northeast cold for at least a period between now and certainly early next week. I mean, it has been a very cold winter so far in the Northeast, and it's going to continue to be cold over the next several days or so. And the reason we continue to have this trough is because we continue to have ridging up in the higher latitudes, especially over Greenland. So this continues to unravel the jet stream over areas of eastern Canada and the Northeast. But there is a ridge building in over the weekend into early next week. So this is going to bring the return of above average temperatures across the middle to eastern portion of the country. And this entire ridge axis is actually going to build east and actually strengthen and build over the eastern U.S. At the same time, we have a trough beginning to dig across areas of the eastern Pacific and western U.S. Alaska continues to be cold. That has been the story up here all fall and winter. And this is what the pattern in the upper levels will most likely look like early next week. Now let's get deeper into next week. So we start to move into the 5th. We start to move into the 6th and then the 7th. So this is midway next week, and we're going to go all the way out. Let's just go about a week out from today. So this is next Friday morning. Okay, this is the 9th. And all of a sudden, we have a strong ridge signal over pretty much all of eastern North America. So that includes the eastern lower 48, eastern Canada, and the ridge actually extends all the way up into Greenland. And we have a trough digging down across the western U.S. This is likely going to bring below average temperatures, a storm system or multiple ones. Alaska stays cold, but you start to have this ridge building right here. So to sum this up, in the eastern U.S., this ridge signal is going to bring us warmer than average temperatures. We're going to steadily warm up. If you look at your 10-day forecast, whether you have the Weather Channel app, a local Weather Channel app, or, it's your default iPhone app, which you guys know I can't stand, you're going to notice pretty much, especially in the southeast, the south, but even in the northeast, that your temperature trend is probably going to go up as we get into later next week, and that is because of this ridge it's going to build over. So let's get past the day 7 time frame. What happens? It's the Euro ensemble, by the way. A little wrinkle in the pattern that I am seeing is you see how a ridge is starting to spike here. So we're starting to get a bit of what we call a positive PNA, which means we have a ridge over areas of western North America. We still have a positive EPO, which means we have a trough. It's colder in Alaska. But we have this dip in the jet kind of going right here, kind of interfering right in the middle of ridging on both sides. I think that this is going to be some type of storm system. Could bring a shot of cold air. But as we continue to move, and this is next weekend, this is next Saturday, okay, the 10th, you see the lower height show up over the eastern U.S. I think this could bring a quick shot of slightly cooler than average temperatures behind it. And there's just a dip in the jet here. I think this could be a storm system, and we just got to watch this. Model Guidance has been kind of flirting around with this idea for the last few days. I've been noticing it, and it could provide a break in the ridge, a break in the above average temperature pattern for it might just kind of abruptly end the pattern of above average temperatures, because right behind it, another trough digs in, because we have this building ridge over western areas of North America, and it's going to gradually spike, most likely all the way up into Alaska. And that has been a bit of a change, is a little bit of a delay with a negative EPO ridge up into Alaska, but a more pronounced positive PNA. So, losing the negative EPO is not a good thing for winter weather fans, but gaining the more of a ridge out west is a good thing. So I guess you can say they cancel each other out. Now we continue to have somewhat of a blocking up here in the higher latitudes. We need to keep the higher heights, the warmer colors up here. That is just kind of a player that helps us, okay? It's almost impossible to get perfect teleconnections, guys. And when I say teleconnections, I'm talking about the EPOs, the PNAs, the NAOs, the AOs, and stuff like that. All that fancy wording and just geeking out with you. Once we get past day 10, we know everything gets wild past day 10. Okay, that little signal kind of disappears, but it doesn't completely go away. And then we have another signal for a trough digging down across the eastern U.S. This is the signal we've been honking the horn at for a while, and we are starting to get finally under 300 hours with this, right? And this is kind of signaling a trough digging down across areas of the central to eastern sections of North America, all the way down to the eastern areas of the lower 48. We continue to have kind of a neutral look up in the NAO region. When I say NAO, I mean like a negative NAO, that's blocking over Greenland. AO, that's blocking over the Arctic region. And it's just kind of a neutral look. It's not, you kind of just, you have some troughing right here, kind of over the Arctic region, little bit of a ridge signal here, but to even it all out, it's kind of a neutral look. Now we have a positive PNA. A positive PNA means that we have a ridge over the western sections of North America. Now, if we can spike this all the way up to Alaska, then we get a negative EPO. This is just a full-fledged ridge over North America, climbing all the way up to Alaska. So in response, you have the unraveling of the jet, and we go all the way out to about the 14th, 15th of January, and you have this signal of a climbing ridge all the way up into Alaska. Therefore, in response, the jet digs down, cold air filters in from the higher latitudes, and what looks like a bit of a cross-polar flow. Cold air coming from the Arctic region all the way into this dip in the jet stream. And of course, one thing that I like to see here is this blue showing up here. That tells me that the southern jet is starting to get active if it's not already active at this point. So if we can get some energy kind of moving into this area, some energy sliding down on the backside of this ridge over the western U.S., we got cold air coming down into this dip in the jet. Could we have some sort of connection of a storm system here? And that's what we've been watching. But I want to watch before this time frame too. And this little time frame right here, this is before. This is getting into the 11th to the 12th. But anyways, we take it all the way to the end of the run. And, we can go all the way out till Friday the 16th, and we still have a pretty strong signal for a lot of cold air diving down. But, the ridge kind of flattens out, tries to move a little bit into the southeastern U.S., but still a strong ridge signature all the way up to Alaska at the end of the run. Pretty much a neutral look up in Greenland. We need this just flat out negative. Negative AO, negative NAO, fancy wording for blocking ridging in the higher latitudes, which dislodges cold air to the south. And that's kind of what's happening here, but this is more so in response to favorable Pacific teleconnections, which is your EPO, your EPO, your PNA, stuff like that. So an even more favorable look, comparing against the Euro ensemble that I just showed you. This is the Euro AI ensemble from this morning. And we're going to start off late next week, the 8th of January. So this is next Thursday, timestamp right here, timestamp right here. Now, I'm going to have to talk a little extra loud because I'm trying to drown out a bird that's on the other side of my wall outside behind me. It is loud, but it's a beautiful morning and the birds are chirping. So You can't really complain, right? But let's move forward. And as you can tell, there's a ridge late next work week across the eastern U.S., just like with what the Euro ensemble just showed you. And there's a trough, the blue, the lower heights dropping across the western U.S. Nothing is really different with that. But there is something more pronounced, just like what the Euro is showing, but it's a little bit more there, I guess you can say, across the middle of the country. There's some energy down here, there's some energy right here, and this is a signature for a trough dropping down. Now, like I said, the Euro ensemble shows this also. It's not like this is the only thing that shows it, but Model Guys is flirting with something around day 10. I don't know what that something is, but I'm going to watch if it can trend more of something, and we'll describe more of what that something could be when we show you these individual model runs here in a second. But we continue to move forward, and I really think this trough, once we get about 10 to 12 days into January, sort of ends this pattern. Now we got that spiking ridge, just like we've been talking about nonstop. Now this is an aggressive spike in the ridge. You got a true, what looks like a positive PNA, a ridge out west. It's positioned definitely more so to the west, but still there. I mean, that is a spiking ridge right all the way up and still building all the way up to Alaska. And we're firmly inside 300 hours at this point. This is the evening of the 13th. And we have an aggressive digging trough across the middle to eastern portion of the country in response. That is a more favorable, what we call H5 look, just the upper pattern. And you see this area of blue down here. This tells me that we have energy bubbling up down here in the lower sections here. And we could have the southern jet beginning to wake up. So, of course, we'll explain it just like we did with the Euro ensemble. Energy can nosedive aggressively to the south. We get some energy down here in the southern stream that combines. We got shots of cold air coming down with this dip in the jet. And we could have maybe a winter weather system or something. How far south? I don't know. But this is I wouldn't say a much more favorable look compared to the Euro ensemble, but this is more of an aggressive look. And you have a true connection to some southern stream here. We get about 300 hours out. And that trough is just diving down more. Okay? The position of it, I mean, no position of the trough is perfect because everybody lives in a different area. And it's crazy. I think people forget that. I think sometimes people think I'm just talking about the weather for their specific front yard. I see that a lot on Facebook when I'm reading through comments, which, by the way, can be absolutely brutal. The comments on YouTube have been wonderful lately. No complaints, nothing. But, man, Facebook can be brutal. But, I mean, that is a nice spike with the Western teleconnections, the Pacific teleconnections, and we have a deep digging trough. And one thing we also have is we still have more of a negative look up here, negative NAO, negative AO blocking in the Arctic region. This also helps in tandem to unravel that jet stream, filter down in cold air. So we just got cold air coming down and we could have an active storm trap. But this is just a better look at this range compared to the Euro ensemble at 300 hours out. Okay, I mean, we still got a trough digging down, but it's a little more flattened and dampened out west. But if you look at the Euro AI ensemble, more of a spiking ridge. We got energy undercutting the ridge, trying to move into this dip in the jet, this shot of cold air. And this is just a better look. And if we go all the way out, I mean, we go past 300 hours out to the firmly in the mid-month time frames, the 15th of January. That's a nice spiking ridge up into Alaska, folks. I mean, that is a true negative EPO. Still a ridge over Western North America, and I mean, that is a deep digging trough. I mean, that's a good look. That's a solid look. I mean, that's probably one of the best Euro AI ensemble runs for the mid-month time frame that we've been honking the horn at nonstop in a long time. Now, I don't want to just show you all the great runs for us winter weather fans. I'll continue to show the GFS ensemble, but we're going to run through it a lot faster because who wants to see this ugly look? I know our warm weather fans do, but you know, it does show some sort of signal. Let's make sure we have the entirety of the run here. It shows a trough digging down across Canada, but it just doesn't dig very, and this could be right. And it builds that southeast ridge over areas of the south, the southeast, even the eastern U.S., and it drops cold air. And there is a negative EPO, but there is just a flat out negative PNA, which is a trough out west. Positive PNA is a ridge out west. And it's everywhere. And the reason I'm saying it's everywhere is because it's not in agreement whatsoever with all the other ensemble runs. So now I do want to show you what the Euro shows, and I really want to just focus in on that day 10 time frame, right? This is actually day 9. So we're into the 11th, we're into the 10th to the 11th of January. And it does show a trough digging down right here. Now could bring a shot of cold air, and there's some energy hanging out right here. If this could kind of dislodge into that, I mean, there could be something to talk about at day 10, day 9 to day 11, and there's another reinforcing trough behind it, which backs up what we just talked about with this. You can see how the trough reinforces itself right here. If you look at the euro, you can see how another reinforcing trough drops down right here. And there's energy down here underneath this ridge. Now, this is just a flat-out positive EPO right here. It's still cold in Alaska, but there's some energy right in here. Shot of cold air trying to dive down. You know, there's something there. And then there's another reinforcing trough past 300 hours out. And honestly, the euro fits exactly what we're seeing on the ensemble guidance, except it more so at the very end of the run wants to drop the cold out west, but that is a steep ridge all the way up into Alaska. It's just more so a negative PNA, a trough in the western U.S. But there's a lot of cold air dropping down at the end of the euro. I mean, this is an Arctic blast. It's just dislodging into the middle to the western sections of the country. And we'll iron out those details when we get closer. In response to the euro, you can see that trough diving down about 10 days out, brings a shot of cool air. Nothing, record breaking. Okay. And one thing that I do not like for a winter weather fan myself is that we're nuking our cold air source. I mean, we are absolutely obliterating it. So that's something to watch. I don't like to see that, but this area of the country up here has been cold, but we might really warm it up. But then you see at the end of the run, shot of cold air comes down, we cool off mid-month, and then you see an Arctic blast. You see the Barney color show up on your screen across the middle and western sections of the country. But that tells us what we've been talking about. A lot of cold air dislodging south midway through the month. I mean, we've been honking the horn at that for a while. But if you look at the smoothed out Euro ensemble guidance, here's that torch we've been talking about. And when I say torch, I'm talking about temperatures are 15, 25 degrees above average. I mean, it's going to warm up early next week across the middle of the country. And most of the country, we're going to get a nice warm up across the Great Lakes region, the Northeast, even into next week for the Northeast. So you guys are going to have a nice warm up. And I mean, look at this thaw up here getting into the middle to later portion of next work week. Man, look how warm it gets up here. I mean, this is a strong signal a week from today for well above average temperatures up here in areas of Canada. And you can see it down here. And this kind of color right here, this is 15 degrees above average. And then at the very end of the run, I would say 9 to 10 days out, you can see a trough signature come up, kind of knock down this above average temperature period. You can see Canada up here warming up. You can see the west cooling down. And then you can see everybody cooling down towards the end of the run. But, Canada looks to get pretty warm here in the next 10 days or so, for sure. Even before then, a little after. But at the very end of the run here, most of the country is beginning to cool down. But then you have more of that aggressive look here off the Euro AI ensemble. And it really has the whole entire lower 48 cooling down much faster. And by the time we get to the end of the run, most of the country is back to average to below average temperatures. So when you look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, folks, I mean, it pretty much supports everything we just discussed. We're going to get above average temperatures setting up between now and the 7th. So here in the next 5 days or so. And then the entire eastern U.S. is going to warm up. We got just a classic winter thaw on the way. And before anybody says, how can you call it a thaw when we haven't froze? I mean, man, you must. It hit 15 degrees at my house back in December. That's a pretty hard freeze. I mean, there's some winters here in Columbia, South Carolina, where I live, where we don't even get into the teens. So just about everybody out here, maybe except areas of the South Central U.S., we've had a pretty cold December. But the South Central U.S., I get it. The Southern Plains, I mean, it's been pretty warm. But the 8 to 14 day outlook, the 9th through the 15th, okay, you start to see the near chances at around average temperatures in the grayed out area, and then the leaning towards below average chances, chances at below average temperatures. Make sure I word it right. Can get a little tricky. some people look at these maps, and I've done it too, and take away from it what you're not supposed to, and just immediately think we're gonna freeze, or it's gonna be, hellish hot across the eastern U.S. That's not what it means. That this means they're leaning towards below average temperatures in this time period, and the more redder these colors get, the higher their confidence is at above average temperatures in this time frame. Now, above average temperatures can just mean 3 to 4 degrees above average, which really isn't a big deal. But anyways, we moved past this time frame, okay, and we look at the monthly outlook that dropped a couple of days ago. And this really interests me. It perks my interest because we're going to have a big time thaw for the eastern U.S. for almost a week, especially for areas further to the south. So for them to say for the entire month of January, they're thinking, it's not exactly what they're saying, but you can take this from this. They're thinking that we're probably going to run around average temperatures in this white area, above average temperatures. And this is an averaged out prediction for the entire month of January. We're going to likely have a below average as far as temperatures January across the Great Lakes region in the Northeast. But, once you get to this area right here, basically what this is telling me is even though we are likely going to have an above average temperatures for the first half of January for a large section of the country, this tells me that they're thinking, I'm not going to say this is what they're saying, but this tells me that they're probably leaning towards below average temperatures for a large area of the country for the second half of January. Now, that leads me into this. The week 3 to 4 temperature outlook, the new one drops today. I am fascinated to see what they are going to say for the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. This is gut check time, in my opinion. And this should run, I believe, from the 17th through the 30th of January or 31st, but basically the entire second half of January. I want to see if they bring some blue down into this region here. This is a big, you got to tip your cap. A lot of people diss on the Climate Prediction Center, and we know why. I'm neutral on them. But listen, they got this right. Several days ago, I was like, no, there's no way. And they nailed it. They nailed it. But this is gut check time today. Not going to say it's the be-all, scenario, but I am very interested to see what they say for what basically is going to be the second half of January as far as temperatures. So, when we talk about weather, stuff like that, what's going to happen? What are some of these individual model runs show? Well, we look at the Euro, and we got this aggressive looking clipper here that's going to happen later this weekend into our early next week. This is going to bring several inches of snow for the Great Lakes region. And then we get into next week. We start to get the ridge that builds in. There's not a lot showing up. There's a big juiced up system about 6 days from now. But, excuse me, got a burp there. But this looks all rain. There's no cold air to be found. This is just cutting in a ridge. And then cold air begins to settle down, and this gets into that day 9, day 10 time frame where the Euro likes the idea of a trough digging down. A lot of moisture getting excited down here along the southern stream. Okay, is there any connection? Not really. It does show some snow deep down in Texas, but there's a trough, and it actually shows more snow bubbling up here in western Texas. I'm trying to encounter some cold air, but, no crazy stuff. It does show some blue kind of in that green down here in Louisiana, deep in Texas. But if you look at the temperature profiles, it does not support snow. I think WeatherBell has a little bit of a glitch with these outputs here sometimes. But there is some moisture sort of hanging out down here, cruising across the deep south states, that 540 line, cold air aloft near. So there's a cold air mass close by. Then you have this clipper that digs down, another clipper, and you can see a lot of cold air digging down with a big time winter storm setting up at the end of the Euro run across the middle of the country. That's really far out though. Then you look at the Euro AI, which showed a pretty impressive ensemble signal, and we start to get same thing. We get about till next Thursday, shows a big low pressure cutting. This could bring some severe weather. We need to watch this. But, we start to get past day 7. We get into next Saturday. Shows a trough digging down just like the Euro does. You see moisture embedded into the trough. That would be snow. And then we keep on going. You can see some moisture hanging out down here to the south. This is getting into the 11th to the 12th of January. And then we get into no man's land. And we see some more moisture kind of cruising down to the south. No cold air really being involved yet. And this is just precipitation. This would be snow. This is definitely rain down here in the Gulf, but you can see a lot of cold air dropping down. Now this right here, at the very end of the run, could certainly be some winter weather. If we look at temperatures, yeah, that's definitely a winter storm here developing, but it means 360 hours out, not to be taken serious, right? Now, the Euro, I still want to watch a little bit of winter weather being possible here in Virginia tomorrow, okay? And then some connection tries to happen, and I think we're going to have some light to at times moderate snow Sunday across the Northeast. Sunday morning, late Saturday night, Sunday morning. This could have been a big winter storm, but it's not. Low pressure is just going to be too far offshore. But we're getting into the 5th. We're getting firmly into next week. There's that clipper that's going to bring several inches of accumulating snow across the Great Lakes region. It's going to bring a little snow for the Northeast. And then it warms up across the Northeast. So, of course, we get more wintry weather involved. We get just more of a wintry mess and just flat out good old-fashioned rain up here. And then we get that big system cutting late next week. This could bring a lot of beneficial rain. But this is going to definitely just bring rain over snow across all these areas up here in the Great Lakes region that's received a lot of snow. And we're just going to enter what I think is going to be a wet pattern as we get deeper into January. And then some cold air drops down, and then once again, we have lake effect snow, northern stream type stuff embedded into this trough that digs down. And who knows? Maybe we have a storm system signal we need to watch out for in this range about 10 days out. And then more cold air dives down, and who knows what's going to happen after this. There's a lot of cold air dropping down on the end of the Euro, but it's dropping down out west. And then we look at the Euro ensemble. What does it show? There's that clipper. There's some more energy. There's about 6 to 7 days from now, big system cutting across the eastern U.S., all rain. Could get really rainy late next week into next weekend. And then a trough digs down. Listen, there's energy off the coastline here. Some cold air kind of close by 10 days from now. And then we look at the very end of the run. And yeah, I mean, there's a system creeping up right here with some cold air into the Carolinas. We got some energy down here. But, you know, it's a bunch of what ifs, right? It's 360 hours out. So if you look at the Euro ensemble here for snowfall, you know, between now and basically the next week, I mean, it's probably going to just be snowing where it always snows. But we start to get in that day 10 time frame. You start to see a little bit of a signal right here. I think that's that little signal for a trough that kind of digs down about 10 days out. That's starting to gain some traction on model guidance. And then we take it all the way to the end of the run. And it's definitely not as bad of a Euro ensemble run compared to what we saw the last couple of days. But it's still not a strong signal through about mid-month. And guys, the reason I quit showing you guys the MJO, just to sum this up really fast, is because, you know, we were cruising through phase 7, phase 8 very fast when we got out of late November into December. Early December, we were in phase 8, and then we went right into this circle of death that you see right here, the COD. I call it the circle of confusion. And when your MJO progression, okay, gets into this circle, we don't know, but to sum this up, we don't know what in the world the atmosphere is going to do. And I think that's why model guys are struggling. If we have a highly amped phase, which means if we get like the 2 you see here, the 4, that stands for December the 2nd, December the 4th, and then everything gets so clogged up here in the forecast going forward from right now that you can't even hardly see the dates. If we can get a highly amped phase 8, phase 1, or phase 2, you know, these are favorable phases right here. You see the 8 over here, you see the 2, the 1 and the 2. These are favorable cold phases in winter for winter weather and stuff like that. If we can get a highly amped phase, then the atmosphere would respond to probably some banging winter storms. But we don't. We're just in this kind of low score, low amped phase of whatever phase we're in. So we're struggling. The atmosphere model guidance, it's just, we don't know what's going to happen based off MJO. So we have to kind of scrap the MJO progression until it gets into more of an amped phase of a certain phase, and just really look at the good old-fashioned teleconnections, which is your NAO, the EPO, the PNA, and all that fancy stuff. So that's why I haven't been showing it to you. But moving past this, about today's weather, there's a lot of moisture across the country. We got moisture out west. We got this chunk of moisture with this rainstorm on the way across the south. And this is going to be kind of bogged down to the south because of this cold high pressure to the north. Lake effect snows continue, just epic lake effect snow band coming off of Lake Ontario right now. But there's just scattered moisture about, and watches, warnings, and advisories. Let's update this. There we go. And we got some winter weather advisories across Nebraska. We'll talk about that here in a second. Some winter weather alerts, some wind alerts, flood watches across the west. And we continue to have some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories across the Great Lakes region. The southeast today, moisture is going to be moving in, and we're going to get some beneficial rains. It's getting into tonight. Rains moving across Tennessee, areas of Alabama, moving out of Mississippi. It's going to be a rainy night across Georgia, and then rain moves into South Carolina, areas of the Piedmont of North Carolina. And then I think we're going to get some strong to severe thunderstorms across south of this low tomorrow afternoon across areas of southern Georgia and Florida. It's just a favorable look here. Not for a severe weather outbreak, but I will mention, we'll talk more on this on the next video, there's likely going to be a wintry mix up here, or maybe some wet snow in areas of Virginia tomorrow. Beneficial rains between now and the next 48 hours. I mean, maybe an inch of rain from Birmingham, Atlanta to Columbia, Augusta. So this is much needed. I can't remember the last time we had beneficial rains. But I do want to, kind of mention this, that there is a marginal risk of severe weather across these areas here in the dark green. This is for a 2% risk of a tornado. So let's not ignore this severe weather threat tomorrow across these areas. The northeast, this lake effect snow band will continue to pivot around off Lake Ontario. We'll get some banding off Lake Erie too, but man, this is one epic band that just continues across these areas. So, just a closer up look at how much additional snowfall could happen between now and tomorrow morning. Fulton, 2 feet of snow, Pulaski, 2 feet of snow, just a ton of snow in this area, and we're going to get several more inches of snow in the south towns of just south of Buffalo and here in southwest New York. So the south central U.S., some rain in Memphis, areas of western Tennessee, northern areas of Mississippi this evening, so that's beneficial. And then we see a little winter weather up top that just scooted across your screen. Outside of that, not a huge deal. And we see some winter weather scooting across eastern areas of Nebraska, a little bit of snow here around the Sioux Falls, Sioux City area. A little bit of a winter weather trying to sneak into western sections of Iowa, and we could get a brief wintry mix late tonight across areas of northwest Missouri. And we do got some winter weather advisories up in this area, mainly because of a touch of freezing rain expected. But somebody could sneak and get an inch of snow here in areas of Nebraska. But it's really the ice that's a concern. Areas in pink could get 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain. So just be aware of this light winter weather event later on this afternoon to tonight. So western U.S., what you're looking at, looking like just some moisture scattered about. Larger system is right off the coastline of the western U.S. This will bring a swath of heavy rain into central and northern California, up into the Pacific Northwest coastline. Might even get some rumbles of thunder, some thunderstorms, but the system will get much closer tomorrow p.m. and bring some impactful weather. Temperatures, there's a tight gradient, guys. I mean, we're getting into the 80s in areas of Louisiana and Texas, but you get on up the road a few states or so, it is frigid. I mean, there's a tight temperature gradient here, even in the Carolinas and Virginia. So temperatures out west is what you're looking at. So, hey, that's all I got, guys. Sorry for no devotion this morning. I have really been just sleeping in, to be honest, over the last week. And I actually had my alarm clock set for 3:30, 4 o'clock to get up and go work out and get my normal routine going before we ultimately have to go back to work next week. But I just couldn't get up. And if I'm being completely real and honest with you guys, a lot of times it's driven off the weather. Like this time of the year, it's cold, it's harder to get up. And when I'm excited about tracking something with the weather, my passion will literally be in the alarm clock for me. And when I wake up, my eyes are barely open. I'm looking at the phone, and all the model guys just looks like crap. It does not act as an additional boost to get me up. So that's exactly what happened this morning. If I'm being completely truthful with you guys, I looked up at 3:30 and I was like, nothing cool to look at with model guidance. Nothing significant has changed. And the way that favors the winter weather lover and me, I was just like, I'm just going to go back to sleep. So I remember it was around this time last year where we were, right in the beginning stages of an incredibly active stretch in January that led all the way into our Gulf blizzard. Man, I was just up. I was up. I was like, I didn't need to take no energy drink. I didn't need to drink no coffee. I was just excited. I'm ready to feel that again, guys. I am. And we're trying to figure it out. But of course, I don't want to lead anybody astray or tell you guys something that ain't going to happen. So we're just going to continue to try to figure this one out. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon.